Right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and today I don't really have anything to say, to be honest. You know me, I like to keep it real, okay? And I'm not just going to waffle for the sake of waffling. Sometimes, as I've been saying over and over again, it's time to go fishing, right? If you are new here or you haven't heard this expression before, there's a time to be out the market, there's a time to be in the market, and there's a time to go fishing. And I'm not one of these traders that pretends like the vast majority of the time I'm doing something, okay? In fact, the vast majority of the time I'm sitting on my hands. I'm pushing trades until it becomes unreasonable to do so. We're in that situation now, right? Things look overextended. The stock market looks overbought. Bitcoin is firing off and is not really giving anyone a nice entry. The miners are firing off even more. The Bitcoin miners and crypto-related equities, right? It is what it is. What do you want me to do, right? Am I supposed to sit here and come up with nonsense to show you? No. So we're long, we're strong, we continue to push, and we've got our feet up on the desk, or we're going fishing for the end of the year, right? At some point, pullbacks are going to come, and when they do, then they'll show up in the charts, right? And we'll deal with them as they arrive. But for now, I don't want to just repeat myself over and over and over again. I will say this. One or two things of note is that oil is coming in for a significant test of resistance, right? So if we get a rejection off here, boom, happy days, then we'll keep pushing the short. But break out of here, this downward sloping red resistance line on a daily closing basis, and I will cover this short. So that's something I am paying a bit of attention to. Something else I'm paying attention to is the stock market still hasn't put in its daily cycle low yet. Now, it's going to at some point, even if it's late, even if it comes early January, it's going to put in a nice, significant pullback into a daily cycle low. I'd rather see it sooner than later. The reason is, if we see it sooner, it'll be easy to deal with. And if we see it later and this thing continues to extend to the upside, then of course, it's going to be a much more violent downside correction when it eventually does show up. Again, like I said, what am I supposed to do here? Pretend like there's something to do? No, we push the trades long and strong. You know the rules, right? I could continue to repeat myself over and over and over again, but there really isn't anything else to say other than Bitcoin is apparently confirming this sort of double bottom. So it hasn't swept the low, which means the cycle hasn't failed. So again, long and strong, continue to push. This is why we size our trades in case we're wrong. And of course, this is why we let the stop do the worrying, right? We don't want to be hopping in and out. If you're a hopping in and out kind of trader, that's up to you. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It would have been absolutely fine for me to say, oh no, the breakout's failed, I'm hopping out, and then hop back in on another breakout. That's fine. However, in my own personal experience, I don't like to trade like that. I prefer to let the stop do the worrying in 99% of instances. I mean, there you have it, right? There's nothing else for me to really say. It's one of those things, okay? Long and strong, continue to push. But I did think what I could do today is this little experiment. So one of the channel members has asked me this. Hey, Camel, can I have a look at this stock, this mining stock? Because they can't understand how it went so low compared to others. So I thought I'll take a look at this chart and we'll see if we can solve this puzzle. And I'll see if I can show you how I'm not going to do anything different, right? I'm going to draw a couple of trend lines and keep it super simple. I'm not going to be adding indicators or doing anything flashy. I'm just going to attempt to use the replay tool to go back in time and deal with this thing live as if I deal with any other trade, right? And hopefully we can figure out, I can't figure out what went wrong compared to other stocks, but I can show you that with almost certainty, I can show you there's a way to spot this in the charts well ahead of time. There would have been multiple times where this stock flashed a warning signal before it broke down. So here's the chart. And right off the bat, this is not something anyone would want to really be near, okay? These spikes look pretty horrible. There's not really, certain stocks behave more technically than others, right? Certain stocks will trade very, very nicely and orderly, and other stocks tend to chop around all over the place like this one does. So, like I said, I can't really figure out, I'm not a fundamental guy. I'm not going to go reading balance sheets or figure out why this one underperformed, but there will have been early warning signs here. So let's see if we can do this, right? We'll zoom all the way back here and we will use this replay tool. So this goes all the way back to 2015, the end of 2015. So this is what we would have been looking at. Now, if I was to just be trading this as if I've only just come across this stock for the first time, the first thing I would have done with a base like this, with a big sideways consolidation, is of course that classic range break thing that we do, right? I would have marked it like this and then seen if at some point we were going to break out of the range, because there's no way we leave behind a bottom without a bottom range formation. OGs of the channel will have seen me do this with Bitcoin, right? This is how we got the bottom of Bitcoin, and we did this again. We drew more ranges at like 25k and then at 30k, and this is best practice when we're trying to find a bottom. Now, I'll say this right out of the gate, okay? It is way easier for breakout traders to find something that's already trending up and buy dips in an uptrend. It's way easier. I know there's this idea, this affinity that traders have and investors where they want to pick the bottom, and you hear this adage of buy low, sell high or whatever, but realistically, you're going to do better in trading if you buy high and sell slightly higher, okay, rather than try to buy low and sell the top. So it's easier when a trend is established and we've got a long and hard uptrend. It's way easier to buy pullbacks in that uptrend than it is to try to time the absolute bottom or pick a market. But when we get a long sideways consolidation like this, then buying the range break is brilliant. So this is the first thing I would have been looking for, assuming that I was trying to pick the bottom. I would not have been focusing on a stock this beaten down. Like I said, I would always be looking for an uptrend to buy bull packs in. It's just way easier that way. So anyway, let's click through. How do I do this? I'm not very familiar with this tool. Press play, and we'll see a few candles. Speed this up a bit, because I think we're quite far back. And hopefully at some point what we'll see is a trade signal that will come in the form of a range break from the bottom. How do we fast forward? This is way too slow. I'll use some editing to get to the point of interest. So all the while we're in here, right, nothing interesting really happening, no range break, so can't really say that we've got any interesting action or trade signals. I'm just going to move this up to include the absolute top of this wick. So still a whole heap of nothing is occurring, as you can see. Okay, and now finally in this neighborhood here, right, we're about to get some interesting price action. We're about to get a signal, something that we could enter on, and there you go, right? Breakout. So at this point, we can say, okay, we've finally done something of interest, right? We had this big, long consolidation. We've got a range break. And now what we're probably looking for at this point is breakout, retest, and hopefully resumption. So the buy signal could have come from here, and we could have had a stop in here. In fact, let's do this. I'm doing this on the fly. I hope this is going to work out. So we'll put a stop below the box as we normally do, and we'll target higher up. So now I'm going to click through and see what would have happened from the range break at the bottom. And you can see, so far so good, right? Now, does that mean this breakout's going to fail? Of course, all breakouts can fail. But so far so good. Long and strong continue to push all the while we're above the range. Then it's reasonable to expect that we may well be able to lock in some profit and some gains. Hopefully we can get a good push off. Seems like we got some resistance here, and bang, we're through. Okay, so far you can see that range break is a pretty good way to call the bottom. Okay, and I've shown this multiple times on the channel. Again, if you've been here before, you've probably seen me do this with Bitcoin. So now we have got a nice trade in profit. How many percentage points is this roughly? Let's say if we bought the breakout. At this point, we're, okay, 260%. So happy days. But with these sort of penny stocks, with these cheap mining stocks or whatever, we know that good things come to an end, right? So going back to this original question, can I show you what went wrong? Like I said, no, I can't. But what I'm almost certain I will be able to do is use trend lines to give me exit signals for when would be a good idea to book some profit. So the first thing I would have done at this instance is look to connect some kind of trend line from the lows, perhaps even from here out. Maybe I like this one more. So we've got two possible options here. Look, we certainly don't want to be anywhere near trades if these trend lines are violated. So let's continue to click through and see what happens. We're going back a bit. Sorry, I've got to go back a bit. And the reason is that we went off the screen. So, okay, let's go back here, zoom out a bit so we can see, and let's keep going. So like I said, we've put in a bit more price action, right? We connected our trend lines. I think we got to about here when we established the trends. And then we start firing off, okay, all the way up here. Look, look, look. So I'm going to pause it again here and just go to show that, look, when we get near vertical price action, it's incredibly difficult to deal with this. So we could be drawing straight up trend lines like this, okay, something like this, and looking to exit here. Again, let me zoom out and we'll see what happens going forward. I'm going to pull this all the way up here. I don't know how high this thing's going to go. And we'll try to deal with this thing one candle at a time. I'm going to slow this down a bit. So we'll see what happens here, right? Each day I'd be saying, okay, long and strong all the while we're above that. Well, look, we're still holding the support line, okay? We're still holding it. Long and strong continue to push, right? Long and strong continue to push. Are we going to hold it or are we going to break down? Right now, if you're familiar with the channel, you know I'd be saying if we close daily candles below this trend line, I'm going to be looking to exit. Notice how we get the quick trap and then the strong reversal. Okay, this is why we give our trades a little bit of space. So we may well have been taken out here. And if we did, that wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world, right? Because we would have got in somewhere in this neighborhood and got out somewhere in this neighborhood for a 880 odd % trade. Or if we do what we often do, which is give it an extra day just to see if it does reverse, then we could possibly have still been pushing this trade. I'm going to extend this trend line out a bit more. And again, we're taking it one day at a time. Are we now about to violate it? Yes, again, a second and a third daily candle closed outside of the trend line. So at this point, I would be saying, that's it. We've pushed this trade as long as is reasonable. And like I said, we would have locked in a good 800% here. Clicking through a few more candles. Let's see what happens and develops from here. We'll see if we can find another entry perhaps. So even if you've just shown up to market at this point, now we'd be potentially looking for another entry. I'm going to get rid of this green one. And you can probably see right away that the Camel Finance go-to pattern. Let's clean this chart up a bit so things are out of the way. Look, we've already setting up a second trend line. You could argue we're setting it up from this neighborhood as well. So you could use either one of these to enter on. Let's keep playing this trade out and see what happens. So we're out of the market and we're sitting patiently on the sides at this point. Remember, we've still got these first two lines of support. But again, this is not a very technical chart, is it? Right? It's kind of all over the place. This is going to be quite an annoying and difficult stock to deal with. But undeniably, it's now working on a breakout. So again, we've got a potential breakout here, haven't we? And we'll see what happens. Now we're starting to fire off once more. And so we can do the same thing all over again in this neighborhood, right? Once we're in this neighborhood, we can still use these trend lines. Either we can set them like this and exit on breakdowns, or perhaps we could have set them from all the way back here, right? And drawn it like this. Remember, it's not so much that the trend lines are magical. It's that the trend lines give you an area on the chart at which you can manage your risk around, right? That's all they are. They give you some place to enter and a place to put your stop loss below. And then they give you a way of connecting lines to say, okay, well, if we change structure, if we break down, then I don't want to be near them. So at this point, I'm going to clean this chart up a little bit. Again, we could have had an entry here. It would have looked something like this, right? An entry like this with a stop below here. And who knows what will happen next, right? Maybe some of them fail. So like I say, this stock is kind of all over the place and it's exploding, but we'll keep clicking through and see what happens, right? So we got our breakout, and now all the while we're above this, it's reasonable to keep pushing the trade at least. You could also argue if we start to blast off from here, then perhaps we could draw another steeper trend line and use that. I'm also immediately noticing it's doing another one of these bull flag type deals, isn't it, right? Something in this neighborhood, but we'll get rid of that for now. We'll keep pushing the trade and we'll see what we can deal with, right? So we keep clicking. Is this trend line going to be respected again? Is this trend line going to act as support, or are we going to have to manage our risk around said trend line? So again, we keep clicking through the candles, maybe speed this up slightly so we're not waiting all day. And you can see it just about missed that, but it's still kind of respecting that level, isn't it? So maybe now the thing to do would be to readjust the trend line, make sure we get a little bit more precision in this neighborhood, and we found the actual area on the chart that the market is respecting. And now we'll keep going. And you know me, if this was a live trade on the channel, I'd be saying long and strong continue to push all the while we're above this red support line. So we'll keep doing that, right? Long and strong continue to push. Let's see what we can do. And we're going to be looking for early warning signs. Bang. There's one, right? Breakdown on a daily closing basis. Now, if we don't sharply reverse today, right, on this candle right here that's currently the second close outside of the trend line, then we have to manage the risk and cut the trade, right? So we'll keep going. And there you go. As we get breakdown, retest, looking for that resumption lower. Again, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near this trade. Right here, I'd be saying it's probably time to lock in this 40 or 50 odd % profit and walk away and sit on the side. So we pushed that trade until it was unreasonable to continue to do so. And you can see we've had multiple warning signs already to get out of the market. Continuing on, watching a few more candles to speed this up to see what happens from here. And you probably know what's coming next, right? If we want to find another entry, then how do we do it? We'll just draw another one of these on the top and we'll see if we get a breakout, right? We'll see if we get a breakout that can be respected. Also, we've got a trend line breakdown, so we're possibly looking to set up another area of support. I wonder if this is going to connect with those original trend lines that we drew from all the way back here, right? So I just wonder. Grab this, extend it out, connect that. Not quite. That's okay. I'm going to leave this here, zoom back out, and see what happens next. Are we going to come down for a touch of that trend line before we break out again? That's to be determined. Or are we getting ready to go immediately? So bang, there you go. Breakout. Is this going to be breakout, retest, resumption? I'd be thinking perhaps if it resumes off here, then maybe we got an entry from when it takes out that local high, and we'll put a stop somewhere in this neighborhood and we'll see what the market can give. Does it resume or doesn't it? So no resumption yet, no resumption yet. And notice we come in for a retest and then resumption, clearing above that local high cluster. This confirms a breakout has occurred. So we'll keep clicking through and we'll see what happens. Back to break even, chopping around. Warning signs are there, right? It doesn't look much like a breakout at this point. It looks like it's waddling around. It looks like we might have to pay a stop from this particular entry. But if you think about it, that kind of makes sense, right? Because this stock at this point is still up about 4,500%. Does it make sense that some level of distribution needs to occur here? Yes, of course. Let's see some more candles. Let's see what we can do. Are we going to come down for a touch of this trend line eventually? Maybe we are. Maybe we're going to double bottom with this wick. That's to be determined. Of course, there's also possible second entry here. We could maybe connect some more trend lines and see if we get a breakout. Seems like we're coming in to try to perhaps challenge this support line. Is that support going to hold? Because if not, it does hold. Notice that. Look at this. Bang. So as I said at the beginning of the video, right? As I said at the beginning of the video, there's going to be multiple warning signs fired. This first warning sign was here, right? The second warning sign is then when we come down, we use this as support, make a lower high, and then we break down again. So here's another warning sign that could have told us we don't want to be anywhere near this market. And like I said, I'm not going to keep going through the entire stock because we're going to be here all day, but I'll put it on 10x and we'll skip forward a bit. You can see following that last line of support taken out, right, our last exit signal, the stock then just slowly dies a death of 1,000 cuts. I wonder if we're eventually going to make it back down to the range break. So if I grab this range break and extend it out and resume this, do we eventually come back down for a touch of that? Do we round trip this entire speculative bubble? There's the touch, okay? So like I said, there's multiple exits here, right? There was a nice trade. There was a few difficult ways to manage the risk, but we managed to get out. And since then, many of these trades just failing over and over and over again. Many of these support lines getting broken down. And now we're even struggling to hold the bottom of this range. So there's absolutely nothing to say this stock now bounces off of here and goes up. I doubt that happens personally. Usually when a stock goes through one of these big bubbles and trades sideways for a while, you know, this could happen for years, and so could this, all the way down to zero. So just because a stock is down significantly does not mean it's about to recover. And like I said right at the beginning of the video, it is way easier to buy dips in uptrends than it is to try to bottom fish these speculative mining stocks. And so just to recap, can I explain why this one did so bad compared to the others? No, I cannot. But I can tell you for sure that just using a few trend lines, right, there were multiple signs, weren't there? There was multiple warning signs. First of all, when we had this big bottom formation, breakout, retest, resumption, okay, look, right here, what did we do? Breakdown, retest, resumption, right? Breakdown, retest, resumption to the downside. We then failed to make any higher highs. We then failed to hold support again and again here. So if we'd executed a nice trade from the bottom, we would have been out somewhere in the 33 neighborhood. And if we decided to hold through all of this, at least we would have been out at 20 before it dropped a whopping, what is this, 99%, 90% down? Yeah, 90%, okay? So we would have saved ourselves losing this 90% just from having a trend line that connects a few points and respecting it. I hope you found that useful. I hope that kind of answers your questions. I say so often that the chart is the truth, okay? Nothing matters apart from the chart. We will see it in the chart. And this is why I say all the time going into Bitcoin, right? That these trend lines have to be respected if indeed we do put in a parabola. We already have our first one set in red, okay? If I grab another trend line, you could argue, now it hasn't really confirmed in my opinion, but you could argue we're working on confirming a second angle. And if we were to confirm on top of that a third angle near vertical, then I have to sell the breakdown, okay? As I said at the beginning, the lines on the chart just give you an area to manage risk around. And if you don't respect risk, if you don't manage your risk around those lines, then they are completely worthless, right? So I hope you found that interesting. I hope this video turns out okay, and I hope that answers your question. In the meantime, I hope you're doing well in life. Take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.